The Mongol Empire, from Goryeo to Tanzania. History has always been a fan of the tangible. The stone roads of Rome, the golden palaces of Persia, or the towering Great Wall of China. People believed that power lay in accumulation and stability, but in the 13th century, a paradox occurred. Amidst the scorching heat and the bone-chilling cold of the Mongolian steppe, where a person's only assets were sometimes just a horse and a bow, a force emerged. They had no cities to protect, so they had nothing to lose. They had no walls, because the entire world was a limitless battlefield to them. For big questions arise. How did those who had nothing manage to take everything? And why, after reaching the pinnacle of power, did that empire vanish like smoke after a fire? Before becoming Genghis Khan, the king of the world, he was just Temujin, an abandoned child. Just imagine, a 9-year-old boy watching his father get poisoned, the tribe turning its back, his family kicked out of the lush pastures to wait for death in extreme poverty. Temujin had to learn how to kill, to protect his food from his own half-brother, and survive. A human perspective. Genghis Khan didn't learn about war from books. He learned it through hunger and betrayal. This forged an incredibly pragmatic mindset. In his world, there was no room for fake humanity. Only results mattered. When he took power, he didn't repeat his ancestors' mistakes. He understood that the Mongols' greatest enemy wasn't foreign nations, but internal division. He abolished favoritism and nepotism in his army. A talented horse herder could become a general, while a lazy royal relative would just be a follower. This created absolute loyalty, because it was based on self-respect and real benefits. 4. Mathematizing war, the decimal system of 10. Yeah, 100, 1000. Go, go, go. 1M. Genghis Khan was a master of psychological warfare. He intentionally spread horror stories of massacres, so the next cities would tremble and open their gates. Surrender and live, resist and die. It wasn't just a threat. It was a business algorithm to maximize savings on manpower and time. Many see Genghis Khan as a killing machine, but if you look deeper, he was a genius administrator. He was the first to establish a postal system, the fastest in the world across continents at that time, and he was a patron of religious freedom, an incredibly progressive concept that civilized empires of the era could hardly achieve. The key takeaway: Mongol strength didn't lie in the sword, but in speed and adaptability. They took Chinese technology like artillery and Muslim siege engineering to breach walls and turned them into tools of the steppe. Genghis Khan built an empire with blood. If part 1 was about an individual, then part 2 is about a war algorithm. In less than 5 decades, the steppe storms swept away the most solid fortifications in the world, from the eastern ghosts of the Jin dynasty to the Iron Knights of the West. Just imagine an army that could travel 100 miles a day, while European forces only crawled at 12 miles. The secret lay in the numbers. Each warrior brought 3 to 5 horses. They didn't stop to let the horses rest. They switched horses while on the move. They didn't need bulky supply wagons. They drank mare's milk and ate dried meat, even drawing horse blood to drink when thirsty. This was logistical minimalism taken to the extreme. The Mongols turned their very means of transport into their lifeblood. To their enemies, they didn't look like an army. They looked like a supernatural force appearing in one place, then vanishing elsewhere overnight. Their most famous tactic was the feigned retreat. The Mongols would pretend to flee in chaos, luring the enemy away from their solid defensive positions to give chase.
Build me this weapon. It requires resources, General.
The prey suddenly turned back into a pack of wolves. Arrows from composite bows, with a range longer than any bow of that era, would rain down like a storm. They never fought head-on unless necessary. They split their forces, surrounding from multiple directions and cutting off all supplies. Here is the most interesting part. A nomadic people, who didn't know how to build houses, became masters of siege warfare. Why? Because they knew how to hire talent. They captured Chinese and Persian engineers to build catapults and fire arrows. They weren't conservative. If something helped them kill the enemy faster, they would learn it instantly. It's the mindset of a modern tech startup. Adapt or die. Before a Mongol cavalryman set foot on enemy soil, the real war had already begun years prior. Through a network of spies, the horse relay station system allowed information to travel across continents at an unbelievable speed. An order from headquarters could reach generals thousands of miles away. In just a few days, they knew every river and every canyon of the enemy. They sowed rumors and bribed traitors. The Mongols understood that attacking the enemy's mind was far more effective than attacking their armor. When the enemy is panicked and suspicious of one another, the battle is over before it even starts. Through a modern lens, the Mongols were the precursors of lightning warfare. Blitzkrieg, the speed of armored cavalry. The precision of archer artillery. The sophistication of intelligence, spies, and relay systems. They didn't conquer the world with sheer numbers. In fact, Mongol troops were often outnumbered. They conquered through process and technology. The Mongols didn't just take land, they took hold of fear. Every city leveled was a costly lesson for those who remained. How do you rule a world so vast when you're only used to living on horseback? After the storm passed, the sky didn't fall. Instead, a new order formed upon the ashes. It was called Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. This empire achieved something that no previous entity ever could. They turned all of Afro-Eurasia into one giant marketplace. There was a famous saying at the time: a maiden carrying a gold bar on her head could travel from the Black Sea to the Pacific, completely unharmed. That wasn't hyperbole. It was the result of a legal system of iron. The Mongols didn't care which god you worshipped. They only cared if you paid taxes and followed the rules. The Yam system, also known as the Postal Service, now served more than just the military. It became the information lifeline for rapid merchants. Expansion sowed the seeds of collapse. Silver tablets. Pesa acted as the world's most powerful passports, allowing the bearer to be provided with horses and food at any rest station. Without Pax Mongolica, the world might have been centuries behind. When the Silk Road was perfectly protected, it didn't just transport silk or spices, it transported data. What about technology? Gunpowder, printing techniques, and the compass from China began to find their way to Europe. Conversely, Muslim medical and astronomical knowledge flowed back to the East. Religion and culture, missionaries, scholars, and adventurers like Marco Polo were no longer limited by narrow borders. They traveled, they saw, and they brought back stories of the immense wealth of the East that blew the minds of those in the West. The Mongols were truly the ultimate pragmatists. They realized that protecting a trade caravan to collect taxes was far more sustainable than just robbing them once and being done with it. They pivoted from a plunder-based economy to an economy of services and logistics. Here is the bitter reality. Pax Mongolica was a stability bought at an incredibly high price. Millions of people fell in exchange for an era of safe trade. The greatest paradox is that this perfect connection was a double-edged sword. As people, goods, and ideas moved freely, something else far deadlier tagged along: disease. The bustling Silk Road became the highway that brought the Black Death from Central Asia straight into Europe, helping to end this golden age. Pax Mongolica reveals a naked truth about power: to unite the world, It sometimes takes a force, ruthless enough to level all barriers. The Mongols pulled the world together, breaking the isolation of civilizations and laying the first bricks for an early globalized world. Why did such a perfect machine, a network with such strong connections, start to crack? When the warriors of the steppe began wearing silk and sleeping in palaces, what did they lose?
Hold the line! Push them back!
3 fatal weaknesses. When the empire grew too large, Genghis Khan passed away, leaving a massive legacy. So massive that no single individual after him had enough stature to restrain the pride and egos of his descendants. The empire shifted from a solid block of steel to 4 separate islands of power. Without a Temujin at the helm, the succession system became a battlefield. The Kurultai meetings, general assemblies to elect the Khan, meant to unite tribes, became hotbeds for conspiracies and swords. Civil wars between the Yuan dynasty and other khanates wasted their most elite warriors. The people who should have been conquering the world were now turning on and killing each other. This is a key point of anthropological and cultural analysis. The Mongols excelled at conquering from horseback, but they were subdued by the civilizations they defeated. In China under the Yuan, they began wearing silk, learning calligraphy, and eating elaborate meals. The martial spirit of the steppe was stifled by the luxury of the imperial court. In Persia and Russia, they converted to Islam or were swallowed by the local culture. You simply cannot rule a people with an older civilization than yours without being influenced by them. The Mongols lost their steppe identity, the very thing that gave them strength, trading it for cultural recognition that they never truly mastered. A plummeting population and a paralyzed economy. Part 5. The final blow, when the system self-destructs. The collapse didn't come from one big battle, but from a chain of historical backlashes. Ironically, their greatest pride. Global connectivity became their death sentence. The plague broke out and traveled exactly along the safe trade routes that the Mongols had worked so hard to build. The consequence was, the army had no more recruits to replace the fallen. As death knocked on every tent door, faith in the divine mandate of the Khans collapsed completely. The Chinese under the Yuan dynasty never truly viewed the Mongols as the sons of heaven. When natural disasters struck and dikes weren't repaired, due to the Mongols' lack of agricultural management skills, the Red Turban Rebellion erupted. 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang pushed the Mongols back to the steppe, ending the first foreign dynasty to rule all of China. It's like a startup that scales way too fast, without a sustainable HR management system. The Mongol Empire collapsed because operating costs were too high. Managing a massive territory without a self-sustaining production economy and relying solely on taxes and looting is impossible in the long run. The generational gap. Children born in palaces could no longer understand the chill of the steppe wind or the heavy draw of a composite bow. By the 14th century, the Mongol ghost faded into where history. They didn't already know they dissolved as quickly as they appeared. But the world after the storm was changed forever. The world map was redrawn. Technology was exchanged, and most importantly, they proved that the world could be a single, unified entity. History isn't just soulless numbers. It's a mirror reflecting the future. From the ashes of the world's largest empire, we can gather 3 vital lessons. The Mongols proved that numbers are just an illusion without discipline. An army of a few tens of thousands could crush empires of millions, thanks to absolute synchronization. In business or technology, a small but elite team with clear goals and a standard operating procedure will always beat giant corporations that are slow and bureaucratic. The Mongols never fought a battle. They controlled info on the terrain, the weather, and even the enemy's internal conflicts. Information processing speed. Real-time data was the ultimate weapon. Whoever controls the data controls the game. The Mongols. No army in Europe or Asia was strong enough to wipe the Mongols off the map. They only fell when the steppe fire in their hearts was extinguished by indulgence, division, and power struggles. The collapse of an empire or humanity's first usually starts with a small crack in the boardroom. Before it becomes a disaster on the battlefield, the Mongol Empire never actually disappeared. It simply dissolved into humanity's bloodstream. Genetic research shows that roughly 16 million men in the world today, about 0.5% of the global population, carry a Y chromosome, directly descended from Genghis Khan. He didn't just leave behind land, he left himself in our very veins. Their mark exists in our postal systems, in the way we use paper money, and within the borders of modern nations, like Russia, China, and Iran. If Genghis Khan had lived another 20 years, or if Bata Khan's main army hadn't retreated from the gates of Western Europe in 1241 to attend Ogedi's funeral, what would today's world look like? Would Rome have been leveled? Would the European Renaissance have ever happened? Or would the entire world speak one language and follow one single law from 800 years ago? History is written, but the lessons of speed, discipline, and adaptability remain invaluable for anyone looking to conquer their own steppe in the 21st century. In the next video, we'll continue exploring the empires, or the ancient nations that now only exist in books or have been overshadowed and forgotten by the modern era. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.